Hey listeners, how are you all? Thank you so much for being our awesome members. There's a lot to come more. Sit tight, be comfy, put your headphones, now let's begin. Summary: Naruto HP's or when Team 7 has been sent to Hogwarts School, they meet up with the boy who lived, experience new wild rides in a new place, and go on incredible adventures of a lifetime. Patience. Okay. The old man said they're sending someone to take us to get our school supplies. His name is Rubeus Hagrid, and he said we can't miss him. Sakura ran her fingers through her long sleek and smooth pink hair. Her emerald eyes blinking. How do we know who this guy looks like? Sasuke asked in a monotone. He looked at his female companion who looked back at him, shrugging. E2 were close to together as they read the only letter written by a stranger named Dumbledore. I can't believe this mission would take up from 7 months to a whole year. Sakura groaned. No sooner would she be very homesick. I'm going to miss Konoha. Everywhere is the same for me. The raven-haired boy looked away down at the cobbled street. Inner Sakura. Stiff. Shut up. But anyway, it's nice to see outside of Japan. Sakura smiled lightly. The quick peaceful moment was squashed just after her words. I can't believe there's a world outside Japan. Naruto exclaimed, ruffling up his spiky blonde hair. Everyone else sweat dropped. Dobi, Sasuke muttered. It was a week before September the 1st, the day where they enter their new school life in a prestigious school Hogwarts. Well, that's what the letter says. They knew what was coming since after the long meeting with the 5th Hokage, the Board of Elders, Kakashi, and a mysterious old man with a long, snow-white beard and twinkling blue eyes who claims to be a good friend of Sandaime, the past 3rd Hokage. The day that they learn to participate in a long real mission. The day when they start believing in magic. Many of the ninjas from the hidden villages of Japan didn't know there was a large secret society outside themselves. They thought they had the only powers. They thought there only such things as a ninja in where they came from. Outside their world, the rest of the world, there was the wizarding world. It was hard to believe, even for them, that entire society different from those. They wouldn't believe they are such things like wizards or witches, but when the man named Albus Dumbledore with the beard and the twinkling blue eyes held out a wand, mutter a small enchantment. They saw with their own eyes a vase that was floating in midair. So the 3 16-year-olds started believing. Naruto, could you please stop being such a baka for 5 minutes? Sakura threatened, holding up his collar and brandishing a fist near his ear. Sakura-chan, please don't do this. I didn't mean to, Naruto exclaimed, trying to get away from the scary pink-haired devil's grasp. Even though the two were 16 years old, matured into young adults, Sakura still scared him. Fine. She let him go, hands akimbo, staring at the tall blonde boy dust himself off. Let's just hope our mission doesn't get messed up by those two morons. Sasuke thought, rolling his onyx eyes and lowering his head so the dark bangs slightly covered his eyes. Uchiha Sasuke hasn't changed much, except for his height and face. His well-toned muscles could be seen through the dark navy long-sleeved shirt. He was still the tallest of the three, and he kept his same haircut since his C-hilled, long raven bangs that lined against the sides of his face and the spikiness in the back. His unquestionable good looks and strange secretiveness had kept him to become his hometown's biggest heartthrob. His dark nature has always been with him for 10 years after the Uchiha massacre. His onyx eyes were layered with revenge and determination to kill a certain relation of his. No one, even in the Leaf Village, that he could trust or befriend. Well, for those few years that had passed, he looked up to his two companions who, that he hated to admit, were his first friends he ever had. He three trust each other with the secrets and teamwork to prevail as one of the legendary Rookie 9. Just looking at Naruto and Sakura made his eyes soften because he knew how much they care for him, like a friend. Even though he betrayed Konoha by running away with Orochimaru's league, Naruto and the others bought him back. They never even scream at him for his damn boldness and stupid pride. Never. When he woke up in the hospital wing, he woke up with a head rush and the first things he see was both Naruto and Sakura sleeping. Naruto was lying down on a small sofa by the window with a jacket covering his shoulders with a snot bubble coming out of his nose, and the pink-haired girl was sitting on a chair resting her arms and head on his bed. He smiled grimly on the outside but crying for joy in the inside. Sasuke was happy. Sasuke looked at Sakura, who leaned against the building wall of a closed-down peddler shop, closing her eyes and deep into thought, with her large luggage by her side. Her long pink hair that reached to her hips were covering over her shoulders and elbow, her pink lips were slightly open, her fair skin, complexion, and the right curves at the right places had indeed turned her into a woman. She was beautiful and strong from training day and night in the forest, rain or shine. Sakura had changed a lot over the 4 years. Her eyes were closed, but Sasuke could remember vaguely how her sparkling emerald eyes was always full of happiness and love whenever she looked into his bottomless black pools. Sakura was the perfect name for her, reminding him every day since of a cherry blossom. He was jealous of her. Jealous that she had 2 living parents to love her, jealous of the comfy home she lives in, jealous of the bright sun that shines through her window every day. Jealous of all the love and care she gives for her friends and loved ones, and yet she still has time to become one of the best female ninja rookies in Konoha. Her laugh was always so pure, her charm. Her skill as a Sakura's infamous beauty made her admired by the villagers, especially the male population. Heck, she had her own fanboy clubs. She was wearing a red turtleneck sweater that made her waist smaller and tight jean bell-bottoms that showed the slender legs she has. A pouch of her kunais, shurikens, and scrolls was strapped around her left thigh, and blue sandals. EVN for simple outdoor attire for Kunichi. Sasuke could not help but stare out of the corner of his eye. Where is he? Is he another Kakashi? Naruto exclaimed. Sakura grinned lightly at the simple ease of their Junin-sensei while Sasuke smirked. The blonde sat down cross-legged, huffing and puffing with impatience. Sasuke looked over to the Dobi, who was his only best friend. Naruto and he were rivals ever since the first day they were put into the same team with Sakura. They were rivals for the title of the strongest in the team, fighting like there's no tomorrow. But Uzumaki Naruto was still his friend in the end. He was very surprised that the blonde didn't shoot nasty remarks at him for betraying the Hidden Leaf Village like some of the villagers. He was just happy to have him back alive. Just recently Naruto found out his father was the legendary 4th Hokage, Yondaime, who sealed the Kyuubi no Yuko in his own infant son's navel for eternity, but bravely he lost his life in order to create the hallmark. Sakura and he could remember how truly happy Naruto was when he found out that he had a father who loved him dearly to die for him. His blue eyes brimmed with tears and he accepted Sakura's hand to ruffle up his hair. Naruto guaranteed, would make his father proud by showing everyone what he's got and make it to become the next Hokage. Just 4 years ago, Naruto found out he was the vessel of the Nine-Tails Fox Demon, who killed many people, slaughtered many villages, creating bloodshed wherever he went, and many of people of the village discriminate the boy for being the real demon. They threatened to kill him, to scream at him, but were banned from the 4 Hokage for talking about it at all. They glared at him with those eyes that killed and ate at Naruto's soul little by little. Sasuke admired the blonde for his determination and ambition to become the next Hokage, an elite title given to the strongest ninja in the Hidden Village. His electric blue eyes and his blood flow, the never-giving-up obsession of getting everyone's acknowledgement. By doing so, he used to be a big-time troublemaker, getting into everyone's nerves by doing graffiti on the monument, sneaking into the bathhouses, and doing so many pranks it was hard to keep track. Sasuke was also jealous of Naruto because of his ability to show whatever face he wanted to. Naruto would cry if he wanted to. He would laugh if he wanted to. He would speak from his mind. When he smiles big. When he frowns and wants show off, he would do all of that and never has the raw hair young man seen his companion become embarrassed. Sure, he blushes, but he was never afraid to show his feelings. Sasuke has seen him do amazing things, like Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In the Water Country, a grand bridge was named after him. He made everyone feel unique and special, made everyone get over their horrible past, made everyone happy and laughs, and gave everyone courage to be better than who they were. Naruto even cured a little of the Dark Boy's avenging soul by being his best friend. Thanks, Dobi. Sasuke smiled to himself and looked up in the clear sky. Rubius Hagrid. The streets were crowded with bustling people coming in and out of the little stores next to them. Many of them didn't take a second look at the three teenagers who were sitting and standing shoulder to shoulder together against the wall of a closed-for-the-day peddler shop with their luggage. But the nosiest, mainly the women with top hats piled with fake feathers, stuck up their noses at the three civilians' attire and position. Naruto was quiet, fed up with their remarks they could hear. Look at them. I bet they're troublemakers. I know. Julie, take a look at the blonde. What filthy and strange clothing they wear. Worse than the people in cloaks yesterday me and Richard saw at Main Street. Naruto stared down his clothes. He was wearing an unbuttoned orange play t-shirt over a black fishnet sleeveless tank, beige shorts that touched his knees, and blue sandals. Many of the shinobi, especially Kakashi and Iruka, say he was spinning image of his father, Yondaime. He had long ago stopped wearing his orange jumpsuit when he grew out of it. His spiky blonde hair, which has gotten a bit bigger, longer, and frizzier, was held by his leaf forehead protector. His electric blue eyes had become brighter and full of color, glimmering whenever the sunlight bounces out of it. His whisker scars became a bit less visible, sinking into his peach skin. The passerbys scoffed and coughed falsely to insult his presence. Okami, they reminded him so much of the ignorant jerks who gave him the glares because he held the demon in him. Naruto would just have ignored them and waited patiently for that Hagrid person, but he couldn't. No, he couldn't. Something triggered his mind, a taboo. He couldn't believe those passing women were making fun of him. The next Hokage. They're going to get a piece of his mind. Shut up, you damn wench. Naruto screamed bloody murder. If you have something to say, then say it to my face. Naruto. Sakura held on to him tightly around the chest from behind, preventing the fox boy to pummel their ass. Ignore them. Naruto, stop it. They're no one. Come on, you old crones. Yeah, you. If you don't have something nice to say, then don't say it. Got that? What little fakes you are. I see the feathers on your ugly last seasonal hats. They're fake. Fake like you. Bored out of your lives, so you try gossiping and chattering like fricking chipmunks. Crone. Naruto. Sakura grabbed onto the black of his orange play t-shirt. When Naruto almost got out of Sakura's strong hold, Sasuke immediately took charge by slamming Naruto against the brick wall, putting him into a temporary trance. Sakura clasped her hands over her mouth, hushed by the sudden activity. The frightened women and men ran away from hooligans. Naruto was breathing and gasping. He was too angry. Damn it, are you trying to ruin that fucking mission? You could have given away our spot. Sasuke gritted his teeth and pressing Naruto harder into the wall. Naruto looked away and eased his muscles. Sasuke let go of his shirt and Naruto fell down on his bottom, dusting down the grim he landed on. Sakura knelt down next to the fox boy. You okay? She asked softly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Forget about them, they're much different from us, so they won't know about us. Yeah, but the way they stare at me. Naruto closed his eyes and looked deep into Sakura's green orbs. Be careful next time. Sakura smiled and got up. It's okay for exploding, just don't kill them. She teased. Naruto grinned back and stood up. Sasuke smirked. So when do you guys think this Hagrid would come? Sakura asked, flipping her long pink hair over the shoulder. He should meet us now. Don't know how we could find him. I mean, look at that crowd. Naruto cried, pointing at the many walking people in overcoats, hats, and scarves behind where they stood. Well, the letter says, we won't miss him. Sasuke looked over at a fold-up parchment from his pants pocket. I don't know how either. Oh, ye can see me from a mile, ye know. The three of them heard a soft chuckle behind them. Sakura turned around and squealed. Both Naruto and Sasuke had wide eyes. There stood a towering giant of a man. His face was completely covered by a long, shaggy mane of hair, wild, tangled beard, and two beetle black eyes. He was twice the size of a man and 3 times the butch. He wore a very large worn-out black overcoat with suede elbow patches, an ugly orange and red scarf wrapped around his neck if he has many, a gray buttoned shirt, a giant leather belt, black pants, And point-black rubber boots. Inner Sakura. Ah. Giant. Monster. EK. Holy Mother of Pearl. That's what that old man meant. Sasuke mutters to himself, his eyes never leaving the form. Yea, from the Hidden Leaf Village, the giant said, chuckling once more, probably amused from their expressions. He held out a large hand with a fingerless mesh glove for a shake. Rubius Hagrid. Call me Hagrid. Everyone does, the giant chortled. Naruto fidgeted and placed his hand on Hagrid's giant one, but the giant shook his whole arm. Ow. Why yay names, now. Hagrid smiled warmly. That's if they could see his smile under that mass of untamed brown beard after the big handshakes. Sakura Haruno, the pink-haired girl says, squealing at the end. She remembered that she should pronounce the first name before the last in a different manner in England. It was new, but it made the boys remember the basic things they were supposed to do they had learned from Tsunade. Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said, smiling. He wasn't afraid anymore when he kept thinking up crazy things of how to defeat an enemy as huge as Hagrid. Sasuke Uchiha, Sasuke whispered quietly, though loud enough to echo into the big man's ears. Good. Ye look much different from the pictures good old man Dumbledore gave me. Hagrid smiled. Come on now, let's get out of this here muggle joint. We're going to Leaky Cauldron now. Hagrid turned around, if he could, and walked away with the three following close behind with their luggage. Oh Kami, everyone's looking at us. Sakura looked uneasily at the people who were staring at this band of strange people cutting through them, especially at Hagrid. Damn nosy assholes. Naruto began cursing under his breath. Asuke shot deadly glares at a group of huddled people who shuddered at the presence of the giant of a man. Then Hagrid turned at a corner that no one at all seems to notice. The three swore EY felt a strong field of chakra when they passed through that corner. There they stood in front of an old dark pub in a shadowy alley that smelled like old moldy socks or really good cheese, with a sign that hung by a black post with a gold etching of a big cauldron and a zigzagged crack from the rim to the middle, and big block letters that says, Leaky Cauldron Tavern. Is this where we're going to get our school things? Sakura asked, dumbfounded like the boys, pulling lightly on Hagrid's sleeve. I don't think so, unless we're doing the flea market way, Naruto said tartly, his eyes scanning his surroundings. Oh, I thought they might have included something about this in that pamphlet Hogwarts sent ye. Hagrid scratched his beard. Well, this is day fast way to get to Diagon Alley to get ye junk. Another alley, Sasuke mutters. The corner of Naruto's mouth twitched. Shit, this is a scary place, Naruto whispers into Sakura's ear, as she nodded along. This, nah, blimey, there's a even more scarier place than here. Nocturne Alley, yup, no son of a gun can do without goosebumps in there. Hagrid chuckled, knocking on the hard wooden door of the pub. Of course, they got some good flesh-eating slug repellent. Which makes ye think there's bad and good in everything. Did you understand him? Naruto whispers to Sakura. No, I'm more of wondering how he heard us. Sakura squealed yet again. Bakas. Sasuke rolled his bored eyes. After a short silent moment, they began to hear soft steps inside the leaky cauldron. The door began to open to reveal a short elder man with a wrinkled smile. A few crooked teeth, and rubbing his hands into his apron. What brings you here, Hagrid my boy? The little man laughed, patting on Hagrid's wrist and greeting him like an old friend. Maybe they are. What do you like? The usual, The little old man chuckled, letting them in. No, Tom, not today. Albus Dumbledore's plans needs come first, Hagrid said pleasantly. The man named Tom nodded happily and opening the door wider, granting entrance. When Hagrid got in, he gesturing the three teenagers to follow him. Naruto and Sasuke were able to take off the IR sandals when they felt someone's stares on them. They looked up questionably at Sakura who just stood there, leaning against the door frame with a small grin. Did you guys just forget about what the pamphlet says? She giggled. In Europe, we don't take off our shoes when we enter, silly. Naruto smiled apologetically while Sasuke grumbled under his breath, and followed the foxy boy up the small steps. The pub was huge, much bigger and larger inside than outside. The three felt large amounts of chakra everywhere. Or what the wizards call it, magic. There they saw a large bar area. Several drinking glasses and tankard were floating in midair, being wiped independently by small white towels. The entire tavern was whimsically askew, like the stairs were slightly twisted in an abstract way. The windows were oddly parallel-shaped and colored, paintings and photos hung on the wall were moving like real live characters, and many creatures that surprised Team 7. There were hags in tattered cloaks, small goblins, a pearly white transparent ghost floating around, wizards and witches walking around casually engaging into small talk and their beverages. A busboy was cleaning up. A long wooden table with one hand and the other controlling the movement of unstacking old chairs. Small lit candles were floating around to give small dim light in the small tables hidden in the dark corners. The entire pub was quiet dark if it were not for the light given by a few small chandeliers. Naruto walked past a woman in an old purple cloak, drinking her sherry, when he saw the wizard. In newspaper called the Daily Prophet he read about on the given pamphlet to fill in the basics of the wizarding world. When Sakura saw a teapot zoom past her nose, she immediately grabbed Sasuke's arm and buried her face in the warm tender spot of his neck, which made him drop his duffel bag and blush fiercely like a red tomato. Inner Sakura, yikes, shit, Gomen. Sakura murmured and ran over to where Naruto is, still putting a bunch of question marks in Sasuke's head. You're still weird, Sakura, he smirked. Some of the so-called wizards and witches looked up to see the three of the strangest people they ever saw. Well, to them. And the three stared back at them with the same reaction. When Naruto accidentally knocked into Goblin, he had a surprise attack. The little green goblin with an extra yellow eye on its forehead, a club in one hand, and in a turquoise cape, glared at the fox boy. In a high-pitched angry voice, he scolded him, "What? Never seen a goblin before? Never met one before, heh." Naruto put on a nervous smile and scratched the back of his head. The goblin whispered some words in a language they didn't understand and walked away, dragging his big club with him. "Wow, I can't believe you offended him or something," Sakura teased. Naruto rolled his eyes, slightly punched her arm, causing both of them to giggle, and walked with her behind Hagrid, who was momentarily speaking with Tom, the barkeeper. Then the two adults stopped and turned around to the teenagers. Tom smiled his wrinkled smile at them. "You three can leave your luggage here. You be staying here until tomorrow, that is, when you go to your new school, Hogwarts." Tom pointed at the corner by the stairs. Team 7 nodded and threw off their suitcases and bags where Tom's gesture was pointing to. Only getting their purses, wallets, and school supply list with them. Hagrid smiled. "Okay, yay tykes. Come with me." Hagrid walked off again and the others followed him. They went through a double doors and came up to a brick wall which seemed like a dead end. Huh. The ninjas wrinkled their brows together with questionable looks at Hagrid, who unbuttoned part of his large overcoat. They watched him throw back his striped scarf and took out a silly pink umbrella with floral designs tied to his leather belt. Naruto cracked up. "What the hell is that for?" Naruto cackled at Hagrid, who still maintained that pleasant calm smile. "Oh yay, find out." The giant grinned as he tapped the brick wall 3 times on different bricks. They raised their brows and stared at this strange activity. Well, everything at first was already strange. But something in their sensitive senses told them there was something behind the wall. The brick he had touched quivered in the middle. A small hole appeared after the bricks began wriggling, and it grew wider and wider. A second later, the 4 of them were facing a large archway, big enough for Hagrid, that led to a Cobb-Ed street that twisted and turned out of sight. Team 7 had their enormous wide anime eyes plaster on their faces, like fishes above the water gaping for air. They were too speechless to say anything. Inner Sakura, the pamphlet did not cover this. When that old man said it was a secret society, he wasn't kidding. There, as the 4 can clearly see, the cobbled street was filled with NY different people doing their shopping, dressed in old-fashioned English attire, with feathered top hats, cloaks, and gloves, walking in and out of many different and strange shops that sold ware they never heard of. Old buildings of many colors, shops, and restaurants were stacked on top of another. They could see shops selling eels' eyes, barrels of bat spleens, cages of animals, silver instruments and telescopes. Quills of many sizes, broomsticks, shops selling robes, cauldrons, wands, books, potion bottles. Oh, my God. So much they wanted to see, so long they wanted to suck in the picture of everything. Naruto kept poking at his teammates' shoulders or pulling on their sleeves to get their attention. Even Sasuke was amazed when they passed by with Hagrid, who had the biggest advantage of all to cut through the groups of people. Team 7 had caught many eyes and many people who gawked at them. They stared at their strange clothes, their strange hairstyles and colors, their eyes, and everything unique about them that stood out. Many of the girls giggled and gossiped with each other when Sasuke passed by. Here too. God, give me a break, damn fangirls. Sasuke cursed under his breath, stuck his hands in his pockets and walked faster with the giant and his teammates. Sakura felt uneasy when some of the boys whistled at her or stared at her while EY walked and accidentally knocked into some of the storeware outside of the shops. Sasuke and Naruto felt a pang of anger when their female friend was humped. My friend's funny word. Sure, she was the one of the prettiest of her age in the village, but even the fanboys of hers would keep their lust down a notch. Go away. Naruto snapped when one boy tried to make a move on his pink-haired friend. When the boy spotted the glimmer bouncing off of Naruto's hidden kunai in his right palm, he walked away instantly. Naruto, what did I tell you before? Sakura pulled the fox boy from attacking again. Naruto winced and slipped the knife back into his pouch, and walked close to her. What's got into you since we got here? Sakura whispered to herself. The fox boy walked behind Hagrid, Sakura, and Sasuke when something caught his eye. He had to touch it. Crazy broom ride. Harry, Ron, what do you two think? Hermione Granger took a magenta dress robes off a rack and placed it in front of her. Wanting the boys' answers, she smiled and spun around with the dress and hanger. We're not fashion geniuses, Herms, Ron Weasley chuckled nervously, scratching his flaming red hair. I agree, sorry. Harry Potter sat uncomfortably on a cushioned bench next to his redhead friend in Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions shop. Obviously, since hormones kicked in, their girl companion was slightly obsessed with robes and dresses all of a sudden. Hermione sighed deeply and slipped the pretty dress robes back in with the others. Sometimes I think I need a girlfriend to help me out, Hermione muttered. Waiting for the boys to pay for their Hogwarts uniforms. She bowed down her head, the bushy brown bangs fell to her eyes and the end strands curled with her shoulders. She blinked her dark brown eyes. She wore a simple muggle outfit for the weekends, a big purple sweatshirt with a hood and jeans. We're sorry if we can't help you in, Girl World. Ron picked his bags off the cashier counter and walked off with her. Ron had hazel brown eyes, flaming short red hair, and freckles that scattered across his face. He wore an old hand-me-down yellow and maroon strip-ed sweater and old trousers with his navy blue cloak over his shoulders. How about Ginny, Parvati or Lavender? Can't they help you? Harry suggested, giving his best. His green eyes that he inherite. From his mother Lily shined with kindness and care. His ruffled-up point black hair had got even messier. His dark-rimmed spectacles perched close to his eyes on his narrow nose bridge, and underneath the tangled bangs hid a skinny lightning bolt scar on the right side of his forehead. Them. No, Ginny has friends of her own from her year. Parvati and Lavender are sort of. Hermione looked up into the clear blue sky. A flock of geese flew over the many roofs. Bitchy. Self-absorbed, possibly too girly. Ron joked. Yeah, that's it. Hermione laughed, making the others do the same. Suddenly Harry stopped walking and stood there, stunned. Hermione and Ron stared at him. What's wrong, Harry? They asked. Naruto. The trio twisted their heads around. Actually, everyone who heard that voice turned around. A blur of orange and yellow came at them fast. Duck. Someone screamed. No need to be told twice when Harry and his friends immediately fell to their knees, dropping everything on the cobbled ground, and covered their heads. Harry looked up when a full blast of air pressure passed by them, which was dangerously close to his head, and saw. Naruto, you baka. Come back here. Thief. Bring back that broom. Help ppmeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee Reese aged with one hand on an uncontrollable broom that took him over the rooftops, around the chimney pipes, scattering the small tiles down at the panicking people who were screaming and pointing at him. The shopkeepers were shooting up spells with their wands to try and stop the broomstick from creating mayhem, but kept missing and shot up into the sky. The boy screamed louder and squeezed his eyes, never wanting to fall down. When the broom made a sharp turn around the cafe and robe shop, it went straight at Harry, Hermione, and Ron again. Hermione and Ron's hairs on the back of their necks stood on its ends, and they ducked. But Harry's conscience got the better of him, so with his reflexes he snatched the back of the boy's orange play shirt and the boy who lived took off. Flying with the blonde boy and the broom, Harry soared round and round the many shops and the chimney pipes, knocking the tiles with his foot. His shoe and glasses slipped off and landed in someone's hands. Now everything is a blur. Harry's grip on the shirt loosened and he fell down from midair into a strong pair of arms. He could barely see, as the blurry blob of a brown figure was talking to him and the sunlight bouncing off the windows was shining in his eyes. "Harry, are ye all right?" It sounded too familiar. It was Hagrid. He exclaimed. He could vaguely imagine the smile on the gamekeeper's face when he let him down. Someone placed something in his hands. When Harry felt the lens of his glasses, he quickly put them on and stared at who gave them to him. It was a girl. No ordinary girl. She was too pretty to be an ordinary one, with long pink hair like ribbons dangling from her head touching her shoulders, with emerald green eyes with fear and concern staring into his. Her eyes looked almost like his. Harry accidentally blushed and was about to thank her until a black blur pushed him away. Harry fell backwards on his bottom and saw a towering dark figure above staring off. His obsidian black eyes glittering in the sunlight, his pale face stern and emotionless. The broom almost crashed into him if he didn't push him away. "Thank me later," he whispered, running to W. Here Naruto was headed for and pushed another person out of the way. His movements were somewhat fast, very fast. Harry switched his eyes to the blonde with his hand on the broom. For some reason he wasn't afraid, instead he had a smirk. He saw the pink-haired girl scream, "Naruto! Let go now!" The boy, as he could see, nodded and releases his grip from the broom. He fell off as the broomstick flew on its own accord. He made an amazing backflip and landed safely on the stone ground from such a height. The blonde boy had the brightest blue eyes the boy who lived had ever seen, glinting with manic. His giant grin spread on his peach face. "Naruto, are you okay?" the pink-haired girl asked loudly. The boy whom Harry took was named Naruto, nodded quickly and kept staring at the broom. Ch acted independently without any magic to command it. Or was it tainted with? "This is ridiculous. Am I not a witch?" Hermione cried loudly, frustrated, and took out her wand from her cloak pocket. Nd pointed directly at the broom's movement. "Immobilius!" she screamed. A spark of blinding blue light cast off her wand raised in the midair struck the broom, making it stop at a halt before it hit a cowering old woman and her scared granddaughter, making it float around like a dangling chew toy. "Let's get acquainted." It was a breezy afternoon with the sun that glowed golden yellow in the blue sky, surrounded by fluffy-looking white clouds that were drifting by. The crowds began running forth to see the commotion. A blur of orange and yellow zoomed off and caused a huge uproar in the middle of the street as the blonde grasped hard on the tainted broom that was colliding with the rooftops of many shops and scaring the people underneath. Spells and jinxes were shot up into the sky to try and stop the craziness. There was an added bonus when someone else was stuck on the crazy broom ride, someone with a pair of glasses and ruffled up point black hair. Hushed voices and squeals were heard when the two boys jumped off at separate times. A electric white and blue glare was shot and made the broom stop abruptly in front of two very frightened pedestrians. In the corner next to a closed ward, a peddler shop. Three shadowed figures emerged slightly from their spots. They saw and heard everything, of course from where they were, it wasn't hard not to. A tall and chubby young man snickered, his jelly cheeks wiggled. "Hee, that was fun." A smirk was heard. A tall lean young man held out his wand and watched at the scene from afar. "I know what you mean, but it's sad thing. That blonde touched the broom before it was activated." The shortest and plumpest of the hidden trio chortled, turning his dumb face to the leader. "You're right. Ha ha, shut your blubbery mouth, fat ass. The young man pocketed his wand in his black cloak, and glared with his sharp gray eyes at his fat minion. If it wasn't for the half-giant mongrel, Potter would have had each of his filthy bones cracked into 3 pieces. Quote, yeah, the 2 big-boned boys agreed hesitantly. Hey, I can't believe that Mudblood Granger did that spell before it struck Potter again. The young man stuck up his nose in disgust. I didn't think she would have such good target, he muttered to himself. Mudblood, haha. The tall chubby one said stupidly. The young man shot his glare at his foolish friend. Fuck off. Goyle, you brainless git. The boy shut up, trembling slightly as he twiddled his forefingers nervously. Their leader stood out into the light, his leather hose tapping softly on the cobbled stone street. A young man of late 16 years old, with whitish blonde hair that was combed back in a clean manner and cold gray eyes stepped out. He had a devilish smirk that graced his fair pale face. He turned his head back at his 2 goons who were still hidden in the light shadows. Let's go, he murmured. The 2 nodded dumbly and followed forth. Naruto, you brainless idiot. Inner Sakura was leaking into the surface, as the pink-haired girl ran to her blonde friend who was still grinning like a fool. Hey Sakura-chan, did you see that? Did you see the jump I made? It was so cool. Inner Sakura, cool. You could have been killed, you jackass. Sometimes I wonder what they do without a female teammate. Humph. Yeah, it was tight, but you could have gotten into some nasty damage. Hagrid sighed deeply, running his sausage fingers in his messy beard. No way. I'm Naruto. I'm a nin. A hand clapped on his mouth before he could scream anymore. Sasuke glared his famous glare at the village dobi. Naruto understood a little longer then and stopped talking before he blew their cover. Sakura breathed easily. You didn't have to touch that stupid broom. Sakura accused, pinching his arm hard. Naruto winced. Sorry, but it attracted me. Yeah, attracted me. The broom attracted my attention. Naruto was going on and on with his ridiculous unconvincing excuses. Sakura balled her fists and her knuckles turned white as she restrained herself from thrashing the hell out of her teammate. Sasuke rolled his eyes, and Hagrid heard his name. Hagrid, what are you doing here? The gamekeeper and the members of Team 7 turned their heads. A girl around their age with bushy brown hair and dark brown eyes squeezed in between the crowds of shoppers. And ran to Hagrid's side, embracing him in a big hug, big for her, and brushed a piece of dust off her magenta hooded sweater. A tall lanky young man with flaming red hair and scattered freckles ran towards where the brunette was, carrying many shopping bags. Hey there Hermione, Ron, so glad to see ya. Hagrid laughed in mirth, stroking the top of her head with the giant palm of his gloved hand. We're glad to see you too. What are you doing here in Diagon Alley? The brunette exclaimed. Well, ya see. Hey, who are they? The redhead asked, pointing at T. 3 people were hidden behind Hagrid's back. Ya see, they, Hagrid, what are you doing here? A lanky young man with the messiest black hair alive, light green eyes that were covered by black-rimmed spectacles walked up behind the girl and the boy. Ron smirked, you really are the boy who lived. It was just an accident, Harry shrugged, adjusting his glasses on his nose bridge. You didn't answer our questions, Hagrid, something wrong? Hermione raised her brows. Well, ya see ya 3, I'm here for you, thief. The 4 were thrown off of their short conversation. Hagrid was slightly relieved to be interrupted, and turned their faces to a red-faced old wizard with short curly brown hair and dressed in a tight grey shopkeepy apron stalked up to Naruto angrily and shook his hair finger in his tan face. You stole my broom, the shopkeeper exclaimed. Naruto winced when he felt the warm spit on his face. He held his hand out in slight defense and crouched under the fury of the scary man. It was an accident. Really? He tried to reason in a nervous voice. Oh really? Then how did one of my brooms get into your dirty hands? The fox boy thought for a second. I don't know. Liar. You took my broom without paying and created a commotion here. Are you stupid or something? The shopkeeper was yammering on until Hagrid's soft chuckle shut him up. Sorry, Mr. Dickens, this young tyke's in my care. The gamekeeper chuckled again, scratching the back of his head. He's new around here and he ain't comfortable yet of this place. That's all. Naruto stared. The shopkeeper stared at Hagrid and averted his glare at Naruto, and scoffed, I know what you mean now. Ha, what a strange idiot. Anyway, Rubius, he's not to come anywhere near my shop. I don't like weirdos, like him. The blonde had his hands in shaking fists. Yeah, of course. Hagrid murmured in a husky voice, slightly upset at the shopkeeper's foolishness. He stared down at the young blonde who was struggling from screaming bloody murder and then attacking the bloke. Hey Hagrid. Oh, sorry Hermione, almost forgot. These tykes are under my supervision. Hagrid chortled good-naturedly, knocking Naruto out of his trance. The gamekeeper moved out of the way, revealing the three to the other trio. This here is Naruto. The blonde's blue eyes twinkled. Sakura, the pink-haired girl waved, and Sasuke, the Uchiha muttered calmly. All right. Anyhow, these tykes would be joinin' Hogwarts tomorrow for the next year or so. Hagrid laughed. The six of them sweat dropped. What's so funny? Harry thought to himself. Oh really? Well, my name is Hermione Granger, and I'm the Gryffindor prefect in Hogwarts Academy. The bushy-haired girl smiled, hands akimbo. Ron Weasley, another one of these prefects, the redhead just grinned. Harry Potter, just a student. Harry ran his hand into his ruffled-up hair. The Konoha trio stood there still for a while, just casting looks at the boy who lived. Even Harry looked confused and nervous. Damn Naruto, the corner of Sasuke's mouth twitched unnoticed. Ha. Naruto couldn't bring himself to say his name, now thinking oh so nervously about something else. Ah crap, Sakura-chan's going to kill me. Inner Sakura, I'm going to whip Naruto's ass twice as hard now. Sharanu. Oh Kami, we almost hurt. Hagrid, weren't we supposed to look for our school things? Sasuke spoke in a monotone tone, casting his onyx eyes at the gamekeeper. Hagrid nodded and looked at his favorite trio. Harry, Hermione, Ron, why don't you join us? He asked. We love to. We were about to go to the bookstore. Hermione piped, literally starry-eyed. Ron and Harry groaned seeing girl hormones working up again. And they were on their way. Ah, that book is trying to eat me. It's trying to bite me. Help. Naruto, stop touching everything you see that attracts you. Sakura groaned and helped to save her teammate's sorry self again. Hagrid rushed over, actually taking only 2 steps considering his size. ND snatched a large furry leather book and loosened the grip of its sharp teeth in between the pages that tear at the trim of the Fox Boy's beige shorts. Naruto freaked out. No, this is my favorite pair of pants. That's it. Lemme at that book. Lemme now. He was about to stab a kunai into the book but was held back on the collar by Sasuke, who struggled with him. Hagrid raised his brows at T. His strange tycan stroked the spine of the monster book of monsters which made it stop fidgeting. Hold still Naruto. Sakura snapped, unwrapping a bandage from her bag and tied it around Naruto's bleeding cut where the sharp teeth had gnawed against his leg and instead attacked his pants. There, you lunatic. Sasuke released his steady hold after the pink-haired girl was done. Naruto tripped, kissing the floor. What did you call me Sasuke-tem? He exclaimed, his eyes bulging and vein popping. I called you a lunatic, Sasuke smirked. Come over here and say it to my face you human ice cube. You want to fight, loser. Quote, hell yeah I do. Will you two stop it? Big and evil Sakura snapped, her inner self leaked through. Yeah, ya two tykes are causing a scene. Hagrid's sweat dropped, glancing nervously at the confused costumers. These 3 were probably the most trouble the poor gamekeeper had to handle. Save the Weasley twins and his favorite trio. Wow, wow, Ron murmured, astounded. With his friends, he watched the 3 newcomers bitch at each other. They're a strange group, Hermione chuckled. I wonder if we ever acted like this. Harry thought to himself. Struggling news. The office became stuffy and hot, seems the fan broke down again. Damn repairman. A woman stood up from her seat and went to her windows, pulling up the blinds and owing them up to be greeted with a cool gentle breeze. She sighed in relief and stared back at her mountain full of paperwork on her slightly dusty mahogany desk. She sighed deeply again. How Sarutobi-sensei did it, she'll never know. All she knew now was sign these papers for the next 5 hours. Whoever made her Hokage is going to die. Oh right, Jiraiya did. A sadistic smirk graced her peach lips. Maybe later. Tsunade-sama. A young woman with short ebony hair and charcoal black eyes poked her head through the door. Shizune, stop calling me that, it makes me too superior considering I known you too long. The blonde frowned, still scratching her signatures on the forms. Shizune chuckled and entered into her office. Of course, sorry, anyway, you have a visitor. The pen was still moving. I didn't schedule any appointments. Tsunade whispered, lifting up her hazel eyes at Shizune. Can't she see all these paperwork? Does it look like she wants to talk? Luckily only Tsunade's eyes tell everything. No, but, Shizune smiled pleasantly, you'll make an approval. The pen stopped moving. The Hokage placed her pen down and looked up at her secretary. You're kidding me, he's here. All the way from, you're kidding me. Yeah, he's outside, rather engaged in eating a piece of candy. Shizune giggled. Tsunade smirked and stood up from her seat. Well, send the old fool in. Tsunade exclaimed, enthusiastically. The ebony-haired woman left immediately and opened the door for a tall older-looking man with twinkling blue eyes behind half moon spectacles perched on his crooked nose and a soft fatherly smile hidden in between his long white mustache and beard that could almost sweep up the floors. He wore a violet and silver cap on his head and a matching set of trailing robes. The old man was pinching on the small square of a plastic wrap, loosening the hold of a small lemon drop. I like the way you decorate the place, Hokage, he smiled, his light blue eyes twinkled. Albus Dumbledore, I haven't seen you. Great seeing you again. Tsunade walked around her desk and shook hands with the old man. Same to you, little Tsunade, he grinned. You're still as beautiful as I last remember you. Man, I'm 55 years old. I just kept myself up in beauty products, that's all. Tsunade laughed, patting the man on the shoulder, enough with the modesty. Damn it, I haven't seen you in 17 long years. Yes, it's been very long, the man named Albus Dumbledore replied. Tsunade stopped talking when she noticed the intensity in his voice. She turned her head around, and averted her hazel eyes at his light blue ones. She tapped her index finger on her chin, narrowing her eyes in suspicion. You didn't come here for a little visit, did you? Partly, I wanted to see my old friend's student again, and partly, I also came here to seek for help. His voice was grave and solemn, absolutely serious. There was no familiar twinkle in his eyes. Tsunade paid full attention. Help, she murmured, raising her brows. Yes, it seems like both of our greatest enemies have encountered one another. Tsunade's eyes bulged. What? How? Dumbledore frowned. It seems the barriers we cast to block have been broken. Broken. Godime snapped. Her peach lips trembled. But. It was strong enough to hold for another 50 years. But, both have found ways to become literally immortal, thus making enough time to break the ancient magical barriers that Sarutobi and I have created to stop our traitors from finding each other. Quote. But broken. That means he can move out of the 5 countries, yes, and he can enter and exit Japan once again, as our greatest enemy can move closer to the shinobi world. The Hokage gripped the corner of her table tightly, wincing at the slight pain of the flesh that stretched across her knuckled. How many barriers have our enemy broken? She struggled to ask, but managed. 2. That's so many barriers. 1 more, and he'll meet face to face with our traitor. Dumbledore replied, calmly. Isn't the last one? How many have your traitor destroyed? 1. So far. Dumbledore murmured. Tsunade paled. After he has broken another barrier, the two can meet each other and together break the last one, meeting face to face. The old man lowered his blue eyes and looked back up at the young-looking woman who was trembling. No, it can't be happening. Tsunade panicked. We shinobis have isolated ourselves from the rest of the world. Especially your world. No, it couldn't have. Since that first barrier on your side had been broken. Dumbledore, are you saying now our people can interact with your kind? Interact, see, talk, feel. Stand in our shadows, across our oceans, and enter our country. Yes, you can now, Albus whispered in a saddened voice, just by seeing the past years of hard work of keeping a society a secret. So, you're saying, they had already united powers together. Yet to unite powers, the old man murmured, and right now, Hokage, we need to unite the two of our societies together. We can't do that. Tsunade snapped, you know we can't. We shinobis cannot be used like years before. We are not just mere tools to destroy and plunder the world, no matter how strong our powers are, we live to protect. Albus. Yes, but what happens if the precious things we try to protect are being threatened, little Tsunade? Dumbledore asked, bowing down his head in respect to let the Hokage decide in utter silence. After a moment of thinking, she looked up at him. Then what help do you seek from Hidden Leaf, Albus? The female Hokage whispered. Everything we could ever need is set up. Little Tsunade, Dumbledore smiled, turning to the opened window, we have a secret group that works against my world's biggest threats, and they would help along with you. All that is left now, is... Dumbledore stared at the Hokage monument. He stared especially hard at the third head. Sarutobi, it's been so long. His twinkling blue eyes averted over to his old friend's student. He bowed down his head, little Tsunade. I need spies. Tsunade twisted around and slapped her hand on the intercom, she was struggling herself from screaming, Shizum. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Call in order. Call in Team 7 now. Madness at Madame Malkin's. Nothin' to see there folks. Continue wit, you're shoppin'. Have a good afternoon. Hagrid cried nervously. To the wandering eyes and angry stares at the three troublesome tykes Dumbledore held him responsible for. He respected the gentle old man and everything, but why did he fail to mention these three were so tiring to take care of? He never knew this blonde named Naruto could be so loud and rude, and such a troublemaker. His female companion Sakura had such a ridiculous split personality that made he poor half-giant have to stand on his very toes. And the other boy, well, never mind his name, but what a little born jackass. Hagrid pushed the three teenagers quickly out of the bookshop after being shouted repeatedly by the old crippled bookkeeper. He did not want to even see half of the mess they made around the store. He spent half of his time chasing from behind the girl who jogging behind. And scolding the blonde who was running a race with, what's his name? They were running and trampling over tall wooden bookcases and knocking into neatly stacked pyramids. You two are so absurd. They only got half of what's on this book list. Sakura exclaimed, ruffling up her hair in frustration and her cheeks were tinted pink. Naruto murmured sorry, and Sasuke growled, cocking his head towards the blonde. Blame this blockhead. Sasuke scowled, I only wanted to get through these months as quickly as possible. Well, you didn't have to make a scene and baiting Naruto into a fight. Sakura shouted in a whisper. You could have resolved differences in another way. Inner Sakura, men, what would they do without women in the world? Boys equal idiots. The pink-haired Kunoichi sighed, rubbing her temples with her fingers. She stared at somber-faced sulking Naruto who was looking unhappily at his tattered shorts and his stinging bandaged calf. Are you still hurt? She asked briskly, dusting off her sweater. Yeah, I am. But you know what? You can make it all better right here. Naruto put on the silliest lopsided smile and pointed his index finger to his lower lip. A sickening smack intertwined with a blood-curdling cry echoed through the busy streets of Diagon Alley. Right, resolving differences, I understand, Sasuke said sarcastically, smirking at the cower. Teenaged injured fox boy and a beet-red angry 16-year-old pink-haired girl. Who are they, Hagrid? They're so different and bizarre, Hermione whispered curiously to her favorite half-giant, tapping her finger on her chin. Are they wizarding folk like us? Because maybe their lifestyles are unusual. Put a sock in it, Hermione, Ron told her, making the brunette frown, you're making him uncomfortable. Sorry. Hermione, Ron's right, Hagrid murmured, fingering through his leather pouch of money, I have got to be doing my job, not lounge round, now, excuse me, the gamekeeper cut in between the redhead and Harry. Knocking shoulders with wrists considering his size with everyone around him. Hermione nodded, the bob of her head was slow and her brown eyes understanding. Hagrid walked off with the damage payment, leaving the trio together outside the door. Harry was looking off in a distance, his green eyes glazed behind the glass lens of his black spectacles. His train of thoughts were momentarily concealed him into a trance. His forehead stung and he became drowsier and hot all of a sudden. His best friends noticed his strange behavior after watching through the glass shop window where the little old bookshop keeper was hysterically jumping up and down, screaming a colorful mess of words at a very big and timid Hagrid. "What's wrong, Harry?" Hermione asked questionably, watching her best friend snap out of his reverie and turn halfway toward her. Harry put on a weak smile, shaking off the glazed look in his eyes. Nothing's the matter." "You lie like a rug, mate," Ron said with an expression on his face from a cross of amusement and confusion. Harry rolled his eyes, mentally slapping himself for ever hiding something from his friends who can easily read him like a book. "Well, Hermione can, Ron doesn't often could be seen in the library for enjoyment." "All right, honestly, I feel the same as you guys do," the spectacled-clad boy cocked his head in the direction of the three visitors. "I have a strange feeling about them. It's like he trailed off, collecting the right words. "A strange aura around them, you mean?" Ron whispered uneasily, glancing to the side. He decided to drop that point, murmuring back to his friends, "But never mind about that, they just definitely have a different style in clothing. And haircuts." He was still awed by the great porcupine craziness the blonde had, the rare pink color quality of the girls, and the spiky chicken back of the raven-haired. Hermione scoffed, her hands on her hips. "Well, what did you expect, Ron? They are from another country. I think it is a major possibility they have different taste. Not to mention, the girl is very pretty." Ron grinned playfully, straightening out his collar and combing back his red hair with his long fingers. The brunette scowled and punched his shoulder. Harry blushed lightly. "First Fleur Delacour, now her. Seems you have a liking for foreign girls, huh?" Hermione accused. Harry raised his brows in amusement. "Hey, don't blame me for my incurable disease," Ron said jokingly. "Not my fault either that you're just madly jealous." "Jealous?" Hermione exclaimed, her cheeks red from mortification. Harry and Ron were laughing until the tiny bell collided lightly against the painted blue door. Half of Hagrid's huge figure emerged from the bookshop. A stream of curse words that should be censored for the poor miner's ears went out the door as the half-giant itched his way out. Yes, Mr. Roberts, I understand perfectly. Good day." Hagrid closed the door shut behind him, rubbing his weary beetle black eyes in relief. "Wow, Hagrid, babysitting and lying in one day. Life must be wonderful." Ron grinned sarcastically. "I ain't gonna have time to be scoldin' ya, 'cause I ain't your poor heartin' mum, so I may be just ignorin', crack jokes ya say." Hagrid waved it off and walked past the trio in a tired posture. "Geez, Sakura-chan. It was a joke. Don't go around hitting me," Naruto cried, rubbing his bruised head. Sasuke smirked. "Then don't go around harassing me," Sakura exclaimed. "Harassing? You call that harassing, or whatever bogus? It's not funny, Naruto." "Funny? You think humongo bumps on my head are funny? Actually, Dobby, the bumps seem to be a good look for you," Sasuke snorted, crossing his arms and leaning against the brick wall. "Say that again, Sasuke-tem. I dare you," Naruto shouted back. "I swear I'll break your face." Inner Sakura, break his face. What is he talking about? Naruto nay. Veer threatened anyone like that before, he can't be serious. Haven't you broken enough things, Baka? Oh. You're getting it now, jackass. Sasuke smirked. Sakura shot him a panic look. The blonde bent his back, crouched his legs that his eyes were directed to the cobbled ground underneath him. He flexed his fingers, groaning at the pleasurable pain that rushed into his pumping veins. Only when Naruto emitted a deadly aura around him, spurts of vast chakra escaped out his pores, did Sasuke tensed and take a nervous step back. Sakura squealed a small squeak and covered her trembling lips with her pale hand. Sasuke grabbed her arm, never letting his dilated onyx eyes off this freak. Naruto's electric blue eyes was tainted bright red-orange, his whisker scars curved with his gaping snarling mouth. His jagged teeth coated with froth sharpened. Then Hagrid stepped in unnoticeably. Okay, tykes. 2 more shops to be gettin' at, den an ol' ice cream break. Hagrid chuckled, the small pit of anger in him from before disappearing. He looked down at Naruto, who immediately let his scary silhouette go and staggered on his feet, then at pale Sakura and his name he does not are. A member who had his hand grasped on her arm, then back again. The half-giant raised a furry worm of an eyebrow in question. Tykes may be actin', weird or normal, not dat I can be tellin', Hagrid murred loud enough for the shinobis to hear, deciding to ignore their queer behavior. The 3 teenagers behind him peeked at the trio in curiosity. Yes, Hagrid-san, Sakura whispered, breaking the awkward pregnant silence. We'll get going. Why yeah, Naruto mumbled. Sasuke nodded, releasing his killer grip on the kunoichi's bicep. All right, Hermione, you, Harry, and Ron be talkin', Sakura and, him, Sasuke's eyebrow twitched. To Madame Malkin's, furs, I'm gonna be havin' a talk with Naruto, Hagrid smiled a mysterious smile that only the foreign kids would know. Ron scowled, aw, man. Hagrid, we just went there. You just unleashed Hermione's hormones. What about my hormones? Hermione asked in a deadly tone, staring at the redhead with eyes that could kill. Ron gulped. When she averted her eyes to the 2 newcomers, she put on a smile. Come on, I'll show you where to get the Hogwarts uniforms. She piped, dragging along Sasuke and Sakura with Weasley following shortly after. The Potter boy was about to walk after them, but he cast an unknowing look at his giant friend and the blonde. He had an uneasy feeling at the pit of his stomach but left to give the 2 privacy. You should report this to Dumbledore, were all that Harry heard. He was confused. What was there to say to the Hogwarts headmaster? When Naruto and the gamekeeper saw the others exiting, Hagrid turned to the blonde with a knowing frown. Some ding happenin', boy, what's wrong? The half-giant asked in a half-tone. Naruto screwed his face into a pout. Nothing. Ya should be not lyin', Naruto. Nothing's wrong, Naruto muttered, crossing his arms. His mouth twitched. I guess, I'm just unfamiliar of Britain. For one short moment, the fox boy thought he saw the teenager wit. The awful hair and glasses turn around. But he decided to ignore it. He wanted to find more ways to convince the giant. Britain seems a lot colder than Japan. That might be it. I mean, I hate to insult the land you live in, but maybe you should report this to Dumbledore. I might not like dealin' with some ding I'm not familiar with, Hagrid interrupted, talking a bit louder than before. To the old man, Naruto retorted, I don't need more security during this mission, I have you know that. I'm fine. I be hoppin', so, but just be makin' sure of your health. No, don't be interruptin' me, but if you needin' any, ELP. Just drop by my small place at the school grounds. Hagrid smiled lightly behind his untamed mass of beard. Ain't hard to miss, always be standin' by the sackin' forbidden forest. Fang be deer on guard, anyway. Also I teach classes, so I might know some dings. Naruto nodded, not understanding the way he talked but he understood anyhow. He murmured his thanks. Hagrid grinned, pushing the blonde towards the direction of the cloaks shop. Let's be goin'. We be needin' to pick up your clothes. My clothes. Course. You be needin' uniforms anyway now you be joinin' Hogwarts. Also, might I add in, that good old Dumbledore has made some personal favors on your half. Girls love shopping, as so Ronald Weasley had always known. The moment Hermione and that cute girl stepped into Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions shop, the bushy-haired teenager immediately grabbed Sakura, wrist and pulled her inside. Whatever happened to the smarty pants that Ron always knew? Where is the girl who was always too smart for her own good, the motherly figure in their little trio, the tomboy in Hogwarts, the well-known person who mastered in getting an impossibly clean school record, the spew girl? Oh bloody. He hoped that girl had more brains than engaging those foreign wizards into her nonsense club. The redhead sat back down on the bench against the cream-colored wall by the door, where a few bored-out-of-their-mind husbands sat down with heavy bags in their hands when their hectic wives go about the store searching chaotically for clothes. He propped his other shopping bags on the right of him, and stared boringly at the ceiling. The robe shop was covered with bargain-hunting women who were either gossiping or setting their claws on the clothin. Every other female lionesses had their sights on. Different colors and sizes of dress robes, cloaks, shoes, ties, bow ties, feathered hats, derbies, blouses, dress pants and shirts, stockings, socks, belts, shawls, scarves. Jackets and coats, and undergarments were all set out for hawking. Uchiha Sasuke was leaning against the corner of the store, letting his dark tresses cover his eyes in the most mysterious way while ignoring the young cashier with curly auburn hair who was giving him repeated quick glances. Harry Potter was walking around with Hermione and Sakura, staring at the back of her rosette petal hair. Ron Weasley was still sitting on the bench holding on that miserable look on his freckled face like the few of men sitting next to him. He cast a few looks at the cute cashier. Haruno Sakura followed the bushy-haired girl around, not knowing what to do. Ever since infamous sadist Morino Ibiki-sensei took her into his ward 2 years ago, she had not been able to concentrate. On manicures and shopping from all the paperwork at the head department of torture and interrogation. She would not even mention the many times her mother and Ino had literally dragged her out of the house just to go to the salon. Hermione Granger was happier now that a girl could help her, that's if she isn't another Parvati and Lavender clone. She was about to show her a teal-green dress off rack until Hagrid and the blonde came in. Sakura tensed a bit but relaxed when she saw that same signature foxy smile on her teammate. Sasuke grunted when he entered and made his entrance to meet up with that giant who couldn't remember his name. They walked over to the cashier. Hagrid pushed his forefinger on the tabletop bell twice. An 18-year-old woman emerged from under the desk with a box of colored thread and spools. And a long piece of yellow measurement tape encircled around her neck and shoulder. A few sewing needles clipped on the front of her gray work apron. She blushed embarrassingly at Sasuke of her appearance, combing her short curls over her head. "Hello again, Quince," Hagrid greeted the young cashier with the short curly auburn hair. "Good afternoon, Mr. Hagrid," Quince said with a smile. But more of that sweet smile was concerned for the Uchiha. "So what can I do for you today?" The cashier quickly slipped a magazine catalog from her apron pocket, and opened it up to a page. "We have sales on our seasonal cloaks and—" No, I just need Madame Malkin's for now," he pointed his chubby sausage index finger directing to the shinobis, Naruto, Sakura, and the other one. "Be needin' measurements for der uniforms." "Of course," Quince said, still smiling, a bit disappointed that she wouldn't be able to associate with the awfully cute boy. The 3 shinobis entered into a room behind navy blue curtains patterned with yellow stars and crescent moons. It was a big hexagonal room detailed with orange and red drapes hanging around the wooden trimmings. Half a dozen sets of 8-foot silver-framed mirrors were adjusted next to each small vacant dressing room. Floating candles and independent spinning spools of expensive shiny thread made use of themselves in the 6 corners. A tall, elegant middle-aged woman with wavy newspaper hair walked in behind one of the orange drapes with a clipboard, rectangle spectacles, and clad in a deep purple robe that trailed behind her. She was many inches taller than Sasuke, who stood at a good 5 feet and 8 inches. On top of her head was a towering violet witch hat with a peacock's feather. The Wom, and was murmuring random words through her lips, twirling a long quill in her nimble fingers that was covered with assorted glass rings. She seemed so enticed in her reading and writing down "Measure Me" NTS on her small sketch of a dress robe that she nearly walked past them. She noticed a flash of primary colors next to her, twirling around that her long locks and robe twisted with her quick movement. She cocked her slender black brow and slipped her rhinestone-studded feathered quill in her shirt pocket. She walked up to them with specific motions and stared down at them skeptically. Yes, you are the children that Dumbledore sent to my establishment," she spoke in a fast professional voice. Her sharp eyes averted to many parts of their bodies, her puckered mouth screwed into a thin scowl. "Why, oh why," she exclaimed, shaking up the already awkward atmosphere. She grabbed a handful of Naruto's play shirt, pulling in and out, staring at the invisible stitches and breast pocket. "Hey," Naruto let out a cry, shaking her hand off. "Fishnet, torn pants. Nope, that would not do." She nearly ripped his shirt off, then moved off to Sakura. The crazed woman bent her back incredulously and fussed over the blue jeans she wore. Sakura jumped out of the way when she scratched her nails against her leggings. Inner Sakura, help. Pervert. We're supposed to be picking out clothes. Not for you to be touching us inappropriately. What kind of fabric is that? Too tight. And rough. Bad for skin, young lady. She scolded, sticking her face in front of her widened green eyes. The woman was so fast she shot out her long arm and grabbed the top of Sasuke's head. Sasuke staggered on his feet when she shook up his raven hair. The woman was appalled. Well, much less than the shocked trio. What the hell are you doing? Let go of my head. The number 1 rookie of Konoha snarled. Too much black. Too dark. You can suffocate in the sun, boy. The woman nearly threw the Uchiha aside, briskly and sternly scribbling words on her clipboard. Scared Sakura, angry Naruto, and pissed off Sasuke were crouching on the floor, huffing and puffing hot air. Who are you? The shinobis demanded. The woman twisted around. Her robes and hair flowed around her like a tornado with raised brows and a dropped jaw. She stabbed a palm at her heart and scowled professionally. Who am I? Who am I, you ask? I am Madame Malkin's, owner, proprietor, and sole founder of Madame Malkin's Robes for All Occasions shop located at prestigious Diagon Alley. I am the woman, the pioneer, for the perfect clothing and the styles of today's global wizarding fashion world. And you ask me who am I? Geez, we don't need a ballad, Naruto muttered. Madame Malkin's pretended not to listen. Off you go. Haven't got the time for rebels in my shop. But a favor for Albus Dumbledore is an honor to Madame Malkin's. She stalked forth to the 3 teenagers and grabbed the backs of their collars. They were squealing and screaming outrageously of her scary behavior when she threw them separately into each of the orange-curtained dressing room. Team 7 pulled open their drapes but she closed them immediately with a brandished wand. They scowled and tiptoed on their balls of their feet to look over the opened wooden trimmings to see what the hell was going on. Madame Malkin's clapped her hands. 5 young ladies wearing gray aprons like quinces walked in with bolts of soft fabrics and assortments of cloaks, dress shirts, and trousers. 6 more women walked out and in twos, went inside the dressing room with measurement tapes. There were screams and words of shouts and protests. The 6 women came out with 3 pieces of papers of measurements. They violated me. Thoughts went past their minds. As the shinobis peeked out of the openings, the women encircled around the tall manager, a few left. Madame Malkin's walked past each woman, picking each handful of clothes and throwing the first set at the faces of the shinobis who hit the floors on their behinds. Try them on quickly. Time is galleons. Madame Malkin's kept repeating, as she took out a pair of scissors and measurement tape and cut the patterns of fabrics held up the hired women. The 3 in the dressing rooms hesitantly dressed fast as quick as the snipping sounds of scissors soared through the air. Before they finished buttoning up the last buttons, the young girl stuck a hand in the rooms and dragged them out for the hysterical woman to see. You're now wearing outdoor attire, fit for the wizarding world, Madame Malkin's proclaimed. Naruto, who was astonished at his look, was in a dark blue cloak with 2 orange stripes down his back, orange dress shirt, navy pants, blue belt, and hideous leather shoes completed with small heels. Holy cow, he screamed in his mind. Sakura, whose pink hair was fumbled around her waist, was wearing a plum violet cloak, lavender dress shirt, white knee-length skirt, flowery string belt, knee-length violet socks, and the same shoes as Naruto's. The author is not even going to mention what inner Sakura is saying now. Sasuke, who was still pissed off, stepped out in a dark green cloak, gray dress shirt, black pants, green leather belt, and the dorky shoes both his teammates had. Of course, no one could penetrate what's going on in the Uchiha's mind now. Whoa Sasuke-tem, you're actually wearing something other than blue and black. Naruto teased while Sakura gawked, actually witnessing this miraculous beginning. Sasuke scowled. With a wave of Madame Malkin's hand, the women forcefully pushed the shinobis into the dressing rooms. A cry of pain was heard from them. They threw a shower of clothes into the trimming opening. Change. Hurry up, the woman cried. By the time sundial watch on Madame Malkin's wrist, the workers pulled them out again. This is the indoor attire. You have to look good inside too. The manager of the robe shop smirked. Naruto was in a warm long-sleeved form-fitting thin mandarin sweater, a white undershirt with its collars messily folded around the neckline, gray trousers, and a different shade of brown leather shoes. The demon in him screamed like a little girl. "Is this what you people wear? I look like a dork," Naruto cried, flailing his hands. Madame Malkins put on a shrewd face. "Boy, if you're asking for a stunning, I'll do it without the wand." Sakura stumbled out in a red buttoned-up blouse that tailed around her thighs, winterberry ankle-length skirt with a slit at the side, and maroon leather shoes. She stood awkward in front of Madame Malkins, who was busy using her wand to magic several needles into sewing in the stitches of a certain cutout patterned fabrics. Sasuke, shoving the blushing worker's hand off his arm, was wearing a beige long-sleeved sweater with a black spade print at the corner, with a white undershirt with its white collars folded neatly around the sweater, dark blue that could pass for black, and matched his hair, trousers, and black leather shoes. He slipped his hands into the pants pockets in frustration. Madame Malkins nodded. The three disappeared back in orange curtains before the young women could push them in like the last few times. They changed quickly as possible when the next set of clothes were thrown on them and walked out before the manager was able to shout them off. "Oh good. You three now know of my expectations." Madame Malkins laughed sickeningly sweet to herself. "This last set of clothes is your school uniforms." Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke turned to each others, checking their clothes and the way they looked. The three were wearing the same black cloaks that fitted perfectly for them, the same white dress shirts, gray sweater vests, black pants for boys and black skirt for girl, gray knee-length socks, and matching black leather shoes. Only difference was their ties. Naruto fingered his orange tie, Sakura pressed her hand against her red tie, and Sasuke just glared at his blue tie. A young worker passed out 2 badges each for them. One was for Hogwarts Academy of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the other, Konoha Institute of Magical Chakra. The 3 tykes said at the same time, reading the small fine print. "That's our schooling area," Sakura said, not out of questioning, her fingers pressed against the red and silver badge. "Those badges I have specifically made out of my own designs can be quite convincing," Madame Malkin said in an amused voice. "Albus Dumbledore had the name, I had nothing to do with it of course. But it does come off the tongue smoothly. So you know," Naruto whispered, "about us, about Konoha, about the M." "Of course, I know," Madame Malkins cried, interrupting him when the young female workers around the hexagonal room became clearly curious. "I'm one of his most trustworthy accomplices. You can surely say I have many contacts, even some that can make your hair curl." "She's part of the order," Sasuke said in his mind, folding his arms in a cross. "Now get back into the dressing rooms, and hurry up and change back into your muggle clothes," she said in a bit of disgust. She was not a fan of non-magic folk fashion, especially shinobi. "Are they done yet?" Ron whined, moaning in boredom while watching bemused at Hermione, who was frustratingly finding dress robes her size. Harry yawned and Hagrid was conversing with the cashier Quince. Or the other way around, the young cashier drilling questions into the sweat-dropping gamekeeper about the handsome raven-haired boy. The blue curtains were pulled aside by 2 female workers. Madame Malkins walked out with 3 white boxes, and followed shortly behind were the Uchiha, the Uzumaki, and the Haruno. The fan, the swirl, and the spring were struggling with their bags of newly bought clothes. They were also eyeing the white boxes the crazed manager was holding. 17 galleons, 2 sickles, and 12 nuts, each, please. Quince counted up quickly when she peered into each of their bags. She blushed at the sight of Sasuke's assortment of clothes. "No, no, no, already taken care of, Miss Adams," Madame Malkins said, chortling. She pushed each white box into separate bags and handed them over to the tykes. "On the house, from yours truly," she winked, passing the last box to Sakura. The pink-haired girl noticed one of the woman's unique glass rings was missing from her nimble thumb. Madame Malkins took a mute notice of the girl's questioning emerald eyes, ignored it and just waved them off. Ron was the first to shoot out of the door. "Come back another time, children," she exclaimed in a voice that made them all flinch. Loneliness in her eyes. "Good morning Haruno-san." Sakura Ned her head to peer over her shoulder to catch a weak smile of one of her colleagues. His tousled brown hair that was shifted over his half-lidded eyes and slumped posture could easily tell her of the exhausting working days she took on. She nodded in greeting and returned to the keg. Her index finger released its hold on the red tap of the gallon keg of bland water at the refreshment table in the outside corner that was surrounded by many cubicles. She bought the big cup of liquid to her pink lips and took several large gulps. Sakura threw the cup away in the trash can with lazy expertise and walked back to her office. She propped herself down on the chair where she could have an intake of relaxed breaths. She rubbed her fingers on her tired eyes and cradled her hands on her laps. Her emerald green orbs that were dull-colored and weary averted around her shadowed surroundings. Her desk was neatly polished, everything was set in order in the drawers and tops. The stacks of signed papers and scraps of crumpled balls were placed where they belonged. Her tiny windows had their shades pulled down to block out the blinding sunlight and annoying glares. Everything around her seemed to be white, black, and gray. It all reminded her of a newspaper. It is the Department of Torture and Interrogation. Inner Sakura, and IT is so damn boring. So much for a free day. She dropped her head on the desktop. Sakura-san. Nani? Sakura asked in an annoyed voice. She looked up, elbowing the wooden surface and cradling her chin in her knuckles. Oh, Ohio Lee-san, Sakura smiled, yawning. There stood in front of her desk was the same old green spandex-wearing boy with the bow cut and fuzzy eyebrows. He smiled his frighteningly white grin that made his teeth reflect this remarkable signature sparkle. He wore his Chunin vest proudly with his tightly bandaged fists and orange leggings. His red headband was tied around his skinny hips. Is it lunch already? Sakura said boringly. Rock Lee stared at her skeptically, dropping a plastic bag of takeout luncheon on her small desk. Sakura smelled the scents of stir-fried noodles and rice with curry. You didn't have to. Lee looked with worry, pulling out chopsticks and napkins. No, I wanted to. Your mother said you went to work without breakfast. Aw man, my mom didn't have to such a tattletale. The kunoichi whined. She pushed her chair back from the styrofoam boxes. I'm not hungry. Oh yes you are. Sakura-san, you're getting skinnier and skinnier through the days of seeing you, the taijutsu specialist SC. Ooped out some noodles on a small plate and pushed it closer to her. The pink-haired girl gave in. Thanks, Grandma, Sakura droned, mechanically breaking her chopsticks and inserting a few chews into her mouth. Lee pulled a stool from the corner of her office and sat across from her, hungrily eating the curry rice. How can you work in this place? It's so depressing, Lee said grievingly, looking around. She glared. Hey, I chose to work here. Sakura stuffed more noodles between her lips, angrily. It separates me from the killing and slaughtering. She winced at the slight pain when she bit on her own tongue. You have to kill sometime soon, Sakura-san, Lee smiled brotherly, pushing a canteen of hot tea to her side. It's the ninja way. She sipped the lukewarm liquid into her system, looking distant. I'm just not ready. Why didn't you go back to being a medic nin like Hinata-san? It's just healing patients. Because I'm not Hinata, Sakura narrowed her eyes. I like interrogating. I like being Ibiki-sensei's only female student. I like working in minimum space. And I like when we're not discussing my job. Lee laughed lightly, twirling his chopsticks in his goopy meal like a playful child. How long has it been since you last had a real mission? No comment, Sakura groaned, hiding her eyes with her pink tresses. She decided to change the subject. How's Tenten? Still hooked on. Rock Lee blushed embarrassingly, waving his hands nervously. Of course we're still going out. She just left for a mission this morning with Kurenai-sensei and the rest of her team. Any more news from the outside world? She asked interestedly. Lee scratched his chin, looking suspiciously at her. Well, Guy-sensei is teaching me a really awesome technique. But I can't tell you, sorry. A set of twins are born in the Hyuga estate. They belong to the main house, actually. Shikamaru-san is beginning to have an eye for a certain female sand sibling, if you know what I mean. Gara-kun is doing quite well as Kazekage at this moment. Yamanaka Ino is dating yet another guy. She seems to be interested in anything that moves, he chuckled. Sakura nodded, smiling. Choji gained a few more pounds. Which makes no difference since he's still the new skinny Bishonen in Konoha 4 years ago. Seems like many of the ninjas I still see around have family news, too. Shino, San's single father who is no longer single is going out with a woman in the Aburame clan. Neji's older cousin, in the branch house, has been made into a special Junin. And I think Kiba-san's sister is pregnant. So soon little Inuzuka babies would be barking around. Hinata-san, like I said before, is Shizume-senpai's pupil in the medical field. Does she still have a crush on Naruto? The kunoichi asked, grinning with glee. Lee nodded his head in confused bliss. No kidding. She is still attracted to him like moths to fire. Of course, Naruto-kun is still dense and oblivious to her feelings. But on her 16th birthday, Naruto got her an orange-yellow scarf with the kanji for beauty to wrap around her hips. You should have seen her face. I didn't see that thing come off her ever. He broke out into giggles. Sakura averted her eyes to the side, running her fingers through her long pink bangs. She had been wondering about this for a long time. She never did get to ask. How's the old Team 7? The boys, I mean, she replied quietly. Lee smiled gently, noticing her loneliness. Well, Kakashi still regains that mysterious factor in and out of him. He purchased a new Jiraiya Wonder book called Mischievous Cloud 9 and still wears that annoying mask of his. You wonder if he ever went out with anyone in fact. And Naruto is still training with the perverted Sennin, from the countless rumors I heard everywhere. I think Naruto-kun was seen in local karaoke night bar with Jiraiya. Sakura snorted, laughing. She couldn't imagine the blonde chorusing with the legendary Toa. Sennin on mic in front of dozens of occupants who were enjoying an after-work drink or a dance with a date. I didn't believe it either, Lee chuckled, loving the happy expression the pink-haired girl had. But you know that Naruto-kun would do anything, and amazingly, he's never embarrassed. The girl in front of him nodded slightly. Pain dwelled in her glazed eyes. Lee knew the pain. She had not seen any of her teammates for about a year. He could sense the loneliness greatly. Sasuke-san is Anko-senpai's new pupil starting last week. Kakashi had too many missions to teach him any more than Chidori or Sharingan techniques. And he had regained many of his fangirls throughout the years when everyone is beginning to trust the ex-missing nin. You wouldn't be so surprised when Sasuke still wears black and blue. On the exception of his green Chunin vest. Sakura grinned lightly, then changing her smile into a frown. You miss them, don't you? Lee whispered. The female Chunin looked away again and began to talk quietly. Miss them? Of course, I do. I really miss them, actually. Before Ino and I made up and restarted our friendship, Kakashi, Sasuke, Naruto, and I have been on missions, eating together, socializing together, training and sparring if Sasuke lets us. She choked out a soft practiced laugh. We were inseparable. Only just 2 years ago, when Ibiki-sensei came to us in the meeting room. He wanted me to be his student. Oh, you should have seen their faces. Sasuke was a little jealous, but he was happy for me nonetheless. Kakashi was proud of me but hesitant, and Naruto wanted what's best for me. I was so egotistical of myself that I accepted right away before I realized what I had right then. I left all those good times for this, a small office and a cup of crappy coffee. Sakura closed her eyes, rubbing her temples. She took a while to reminisce and collect the right words. Lee waited patiently, looking like a perfect psychiatrist. And all those meant. Al and Genjutsu training Ibiki-sensei puts me through were exhausting and nerve-exploding. The paperwork I'm in charge of were always there waiting for me every morning, afternoon, and evening that I barely had any sleep or food. I had to stamp, get signed, and file every sheet of paper in every envelope and drawer. It drove me insane sometimes. Everyone in the department knew what I was going thr. So they decided to lay off me for a while until Ibiki-sensei found out and started drilling me back into a machine. Do you have any idea how many tests he puts me through? I had figure out every one of them, every one of them. His questions twists and turns as slippery as live fish. Sometimes the answers are right in front of me, or a new riddle pops up and I had to keep it compacted in my stuffed mind. Lee nodded a little. Scratching his chin, I heard the sadist had cracked tons of his qualified pupils in weeks. It was quite surprising to many of the shinobis that you kept it up for 2 years already. Congratulations to me, she muttered sarcastically, crossing her arms and staring sternly at the genius of hard work. Did you ever get to torture anyone yet? Lee asked, disgusted. Sakura shook her head. No, I haven't, Sakura whispered, staring quietly at the empty cartons of lunch, crumpled napkins, placed chopsticks, and a few droplets of green tea smeared on her neat desk. Lee had a look of relief on his face. But, I have to, someday, she murmured, making Lee twitch in his stool. That is nasty work, you know. Like killing, but much worse, so much worse than assassinating, Rock Lee muttered. Standing up and began collecting the takeout cartons and trash, throwing them into the plastic bag he brought along. Sakura folded her hands in her lap, refusing to look at her guest. I was still 14 when Ibiki-sensei told me I wasn't ready for interrogating, and anyway, I asked him why not. He told me I was too weak-minded. I stared at him as if he grew another head, she chuckled. I began bursting out saying I was ready, that I was ready for anything. And, he told me of some things that scared me. When you torture someone, he said, you have to hurt yourself also to get what you need. You have to bear the looks of utmost pain and the blood-curdling cries of your prisoners. You hurt yourself thinking you're the victim, and sometimes, from what I heard, you're too scared to go through the process. You actually have to dehumanize them from equals into animals or pesky flies. You have to pull the wings off, torturing them slowly and slowly for information. And when you're doing this to them, you're torturing yourself little by little too. Sometimes you go mad too in those chambers, sometimes ending up killing them. And some of them are FTY and can easily control you in the process. I began to become afraid, began regretting my words, and began to release this sort of responsibility. Then Sakura began tracing small circles on her thigh with her index finger. He told me to stop being a baby. She smiled a little to herself. Lee's thick eyebrows rose up. He told me that I should stop being so weak and stop being so childish. Sakura laughed softly to herself. Glancing at the very still Lee, who was sinking back onto his stool, I was appalled. First of all, his insulting words came flying out his mouth, and he kept pressuring me about everything. I felt immature, and I felt as if I was still this, well, a 12-year-old girl again. She smiled sadly. Sakura-san, I think, well, you shush. I'm not unhappy if that's what you mean, she smiled gratefully. Sakura rolled her shoulders back and yawned behind the back of her hand, grinning. I'm just a little tired. I can use a vacation. Rock Lee beamed. Good, I'm happy to hear that. So, tell me more about everyone. All the gossip I missed throughout these doggone years. About Ino-chan, Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi-senpai, really a new book. I mean, there's got to be some dirt you learned from Haruno Sakura. The two Chunins turned their interrupted attention towards the office door. There stood the two shinobis Kotetsu and Izumo, the Hokage Tower's special Junin messengers. Their dark eyes bore into Sakura's emerald ones while ignoring the presence of the taijutsu genius, who was a little startled at the sudden entrance. Yeah, that's me, Sakura replied, sitting up straight in her chair. Kotetsu walked in 2 steps, with an official summoning scroll in his bandaged right hand. He pulled out the flap and read out loudly. We have orders to bring you, Chunin Haruno Sakura, along with Chunin Uzumaki Naruto, Chunin Uchiha Sasuke, and Junin Hitaki Kakashi to the Hokage's Tower Board meeting room for an emergency conference with the Hokage-sama herself, a guest, the scribe Shizume-senpai, and the Hidden Leaf Board of Elders. The meeting requirements are confidential only to the attendees of the meeting, and it is strictly important that you serve in this matter. And signed by Tsunade-sama, the Godime Hokage. What's the meeting all about, sir? Lee asked. Izumo frustratingly shoved the fine print in front of his face, confident. Teal only to the attendees of the meeting, boy. Haruno-san has to attend, on pain of expulsion from her shinobi title and removal of her leaf headband symbol. Understood. Rock Lee nodded hesitantly, not happy of the disrupted lunch break conversation. The pink-haired girl stood up from her chair, walking around her desk, and touched his shoulder. She smiled warmly, touched by Lee's visit. Thanks, Lee-san, I owe you one. She whispered. The jumpsuit-clad boy nodded and smiled. Sakura turned to Kotetsu and Izumo, who was ready to leave any time. She walked out of the door. Let's go. Grinning an old man grin. The entire store was black lacquer wood posts and tall black shelves stuffed with several millions of long narrow white boxes tied in long strips of gold ribbons with hole-punched key cards. There were dusty certificates of achievements hanging near the painted door with gold trimmings. Even the door sign Ollivander's was in bad condition. A broken-looking clothes tree stood low, pea-sidedly with moth-eaten coats and scarves that thrived in the weary graying hue. Dozens of stacks of unorganized papers were spread around with a few rum bottles lying there, and dried spill. Of mystery substances stained on the wooden floor. Basically the store was decorated with cobwebs and dust. It was as if a ghoul lived here. Sasuke shuddered inwardly. Sakura winced at the mess. She became a bit antsy about messy places throughout her years working as a rookie interrogator. Inner Sakura. Who died and reincarnated into a fat pig. Ew. She decided to stay close to the boys. Naruto didn't seem to mind. His small apartment was no different. Ero-sennin always seemed to scold him about the mess. Scrolls, empty ramen and expired milk cartons, and clothes were strewed daily everywhere. There were pieces of paper sheets stapled on the walls to block off the holes made by his tiny Rasengans in his homebound winter training. It was always unbearably stuffy and humid because his window shutters broke a long time ago, so he always hung out in the green graffiti-filled tiled rooftop. He's not even going to talk about the mushroom in his sink cabinet. A stout old man with round shoulders, a meaty nose, and frizzy gray-white hair walked out of his small black office door, walking with a bunch of flasks of brown hairy stringy things swimming in submerged clear goo. He used his elbows to shove the stacks of papers and quills off the dusty cashier stand, letting everything fly off and scatter 5 feet around and dump the jars down carelessly. The 3 teenagers made queasy faces and trembled at the stringy things made gruesome dances in the guck. He was wearing an ancient cloak and blue robes underneath a dark black shopkeeper's working apron. He had a look of a carefree man with a weathered face that could still hold up a dreary old man's smile. 3 sets of bewildered eyes followed his movements. Like Madame Malkin's, this person seemed to look right through them. His bony fingers were busily folding over his collar, touching his wrinkly neck, and rolling over his chest. Where are my glasses? Where are they? He kept asking himself, when the thick spectacles were lost in his frizzy hair. They're on top of your head, old man, Naruto pointed out. Don't be rude, Sakura scolded, punching his arm. Naruto yelped. The elder shot up his hands to his hair and pulled the glasses to his nose bridge, pushing it close to his violet eyes. Oh, there they are. He looked up as if he just noticed 3 costumers standing right in front of him. Of course that was true in his case. Oh, my, are you 3 sent to my shop by my good friend Dumbledore? The old man chuckled seeing the 3 nodding, holding out a wrinkly bony hand. My name is Ollivander, call me Mr. Ollivander will you now? Welcome to Ollivander's, best wand shop in all of Britain, I suppose. He chortled. Wait a minute, are you telling me the best wand shop in Britain, as claimed, is run by a half-blind old biddy who couldn't even find his own glasses on his head? Naruto asked outraged, earning 2 slaps upside his head from 2 of his comrades. Baka, his teammates reprimanded. I suppose I am getting a little old in my career, Mr. Ollivander chuckled, not remotely bothered by the thrown insult, but my grandson Lawrence, who had graduated from Welch Academy of Charms a year ago, gladly promised to help me in the shop until he is capable in taking over after my retirement. He is quite a wand expert, as I still am when I was 12 years younger. Does 12 years even make a difference in your age? Naruto muttered uncouthly, causing Sasuke to punch the side of his head. The blonde let out many should-be-censored words. Mr. Ollivander stared puzzlingly at their behaviors, then continued speaking. Anyway, young lady, how old are you? Sakura looked startled. I'm 16, sir. Oh, you're old enough. How would you like to go out with my grandson Lowry when he comes back? Huge anime eyes sprout out of the shinobi's faces. You seem like a nice girl, I'm sure you'll be. No, I don't think so, Sakura interrupted, stunned by this sort of proposal. I know what she means. Naruto whispered into Sasuke's ear, beckoning him, looking at his face. I wouldn't be surprised where Lowry gets his looks. The girl shoved her elbow irritatingly into his stomach, apologizing. I'm sorry but I'm not interested at this moment. Mr. Ollivander chuckled, I'm telling you'll be missing out. Of course he may not have any time for dating considerin. Gee, his other job. Anyway, am I saying too much? Ha, you say you're 16. I suppose you boys are, too. Hold out your arms, children. Being called children made them cringe, but even so they spread out their arms. The old wizard began to measure their height, arm lengths, press his rough thumb against their wrist pulse, and mentally estimated their weights. He began scribbling complicated mathematical problems on a piece of scrap paper with weird symbols. He was mumbling to himself and looking up every once in a second at the shinobis. He stalked over to the high shelves of narrow white boxes and shuffled through the stacked piles. Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto took their chances in peeking. Mr. Ollivander was still mumbling and checking key cards of each box. Finally he managed to tch 3 boxes off the shelves and walked back out of the shadowy corners. He sat on a tall stool behind the cashier stand and began fussing in pulling out the gold strings knots carefully. Yuli took out the first wand, which was a golden brown color with a skinny gray line down one side of the wood. He handed to Naruto. Each and every wand has a magical item within to ensure the fulfillment, and it also represents the personality of one's owner. Yours is made of Gana Ovenkal wood, measured 13 inches, with fine mane hair of a chimera. A what? Naruto interrupted, almost dropping his wand. A chimera. You know, it's a creature with a lion's head and a body of a goat. Sometimes the head of a snake for a tail. If the male matures it breathes fire. Very feisty. See the resemblance of the Dobie and the innocent jungle cat, Sasuke muttered sardonically, wanting to rip off his ears when his companion started to beam aloud. Yes, it is guaranteed strength and very moderately hard wood to cut. Mr. Ollivander laughed softly, quite pleased of his finery. Naruto was giggling at the uniqueness of his baton and shaking the roseate-haired girl's shoulder, whining, I want to see Sakura-chan's. I want to see. The old wizard took out a dusty pink wand for Sakura. It's European pear wood, 12.5 inches, with a silvery white hair of quite a beautiful unicorn mare I had to tackle. Mr. Ollivander scratched the back of his mass of hair, smiling while remembering the good old times. A unicorn, sir. Sakura stuttered, feeling the smoothness of the wood as soft as silk. I resemble a unicorn. All of a sudden she felt as if she was a lost princess in an enchanted forest and petting the nose of an elegant stallion with a marvelous marble horn on its forehead. Mr. Ollivander chuckled, of course, unicorns are beautiful and strong creatures, with hearts as pure as holy water. Your wand is fashioned pretty, and assured balance between charm capacities. Sasuke Thames. Show us his. Naruto yelped. The elderly shopkeeper slipped his wrinkly fingers into the last box and handed a black wand to Sasuke. African ebony wood, at a length of 14 inches. And holds a tooth of it's a vampire friend of mine who started teething and offered me the sucker, Mr. Ollivander snickered at his personal joke, I assure you his wand can be used to cast complicated spells, some spells that aren't even in textbook logics. I resemble a vampire, Sasuke whispered smirking, as if he was talking to a lying Konohamaru Corp. member. Well yes. The old man began pushing his thick glasses up his meaty nose. Of course, vampires are by nature, wanderers and mourners for the lost of life, or at least the follower of faraway glimmering north stars. That's ridiculous, the Uchiha frowned, pushing the damn stick away from him. What gave this creep the idea he could read him like a book? Talk about invasion of privacy. Especially when you're trying to weasel into the mind of a Sharingan holder. It's not mine. Believe it or not, it's yours, and the wands hold your small supply of blood donation you three gladly resided with. So it would impossibly be mistaken for another's, the elder wizard winked, whispering, of course, by blood, by ownership, I'll say. The ninjas stared astounded and unbelievingly at their wands. So that was where the blood went. During the meeting, they have all seen the one Dumbledore had when he levitated a vase of flowers. Even it was rightfully their own possession, they weren't so sure how to use it. Sasuke left his wand on the cashier desk, just glaring at it. Morning vampires, my ass. Mr. Ollivander stared impatiently and anxiously at them. Well, what are you waiting for? The geezer exclaimed, throwing up his old limbs of his in the air. Call up an enchantment or something. Any of those things that make you people so strong. We don't know how. Sakura and Naruto shouted, smoke wishing out their ears. The old wizard scratched his cleft chin curiously. Haven't thought of that. He quickly rolled up his sleeves and took out his own shorter wand. He held it in front of him. Okay, this is what good Albus Dumbledore taught me how to teach you tykes firsthand, Mr. Ollivander closed his wrinkled eyes. It's a bit difficult for any wizard since no one's wands holds their own blood. And by that I mean that, the blood of a shinobi like you three. It's very hard doing this sort of technique in controlling of certain hemorrhage and spells, since lions of wands can be used throughout any owner. But it's not so complicated for someone who makes wands for more than half past a century of his life. It's like, well, recalling his information at this age is hard, but actions, to me, can easily be remembered. For a long moment, the light folds that creased across the older man's forehead curved down to his shut eyelids. Team 7 watched him pee. Attentively and anticipating for something that would or would not happen. It's a bit of relaxing and feeling the thumping of your heartbeats, you know. Like relaxing every pore in this old body, Mr. Ollivander licked his dry lips. Biting his cheek from all the intense pressure he was feeling and even stuttering, it's difficult for me not to say a spell vocally through my wand, but the thing I'm teaching you T3 is a bit of an emotional situation. You have to picture it, picture that exact picture. I suppose you have to find a key in your mind T2, unlock a little wardrobe in your head, damn. This is exhausting, then like whispering into your lips but not saying anything, exactly, and, there, it is. Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke watched speechlessly at thin wisps of ghostly white and blue smoke twisting together that surrounded the length of his wand and disappearing into emaciated air. The old man was shuddering from the tension and amounts of chakra he extracted from his body. When he stopped, Mr. Ollivander opened one of his eyes to peek and smiled satisfyingly. Something like that, I suppose, he whispered, grinning his old man grin. The three tykes walked out of the hop with small velvet pouches that held their individual wands. And Hagrid was standing across the narrow road where they had last left him with their shopping. The three other 16-year-olds were standing patiently, fiddling through their shopping bags and talking eccentrically. Hagrid scratched his beard in bemusement while watching the three pairs of eyes darting repeatedly to the pouches. Got to be your wands he whispered to them, a little too loud. Hermione raised her brows and yanked roughly on the gamekeeper's coat sleeve. Hold up. I thought they already have wands. The Yount's beetle eyes widened and he started to play with his shirt cuffs, stuttering, well, why you might have to say, we just went in to fashion them, Sasuke interrupted, narrowing his eyes at Hagrid before he blew up their covers. Yes, tis what I be sayin', Hagrid exclaimed, relieved. Anyway, any of you 6B, want an ice cream? Half an hour later, Harry placed his SPO on in his bowl of firecracker special banana split which he was almost finished with, and silently watching the sparkler extinguish itself. After a while he made to look around the table of the occupants. The two girls were talking quite excitedly about heaven knows what, or more like Hermione was trying to find out how Sakura got her hair dyed, which kind of disappointed the kunoichi considering that she hated whenever anyone wonders about the unnatural color, and only eating a little bit of their melting ice cream. Ron wasn't really eating either, just twirling his utensil in the goop and acting sarcastic remarks under his breath, and just looking questioningly at the brunette and her very weird behavior, even if she was already weird. Hagrid was trying his best to look civil and not let drops of his mountain of dessert assortments drop on his coat or beard, considering the height between him and the bowl, and the size of his very small spoon. Sasuke, who seemed very distant in his thoughts, only ordered a cup of chamomile tea, was sipping the hot liquid between his tight lips. And the strange goof the Potter boy wondered about, he was practically inhaling his dessert. Oh shit. Damn it. Yes. Oh man. This is so freaking good. Naruto exclaimed exaggeratingly, rubbed his stomach pleasingly. A few older customers choked on their sprinkles at his choice of words to describe phenomenal dish of ice cream at Fortescue's parlor. Some of them were utterly relieved he didn't belch. Sakura whispered over, would you quiet down? Everyone is going to think you had a sensational orgasm or something. Just by screaming like that. You fucking bet I did. The fox boy cackled, twirling his long metal spoon nosily against the melted dessert-stained glass bowl. Awesome. I'll grade it third best to my precious ramen. First best is the ramen at Ichiraku. The bushy-haired girl stared astoundingly at the blonde, instantly ignoring her half-eaten bowl of sundae ramen. You mean that high-cholesterol artificial instant styrofoam-tasting noodle dish meal? It's so unhealthy. How can you stand that stuff? What? I like it. What's your problem? Your parents' doctors or something? Naruto snickered, lightly elbowing his best gal pal who shook her head shamefully. Hermione folded her arms, of course. Oh, Naruto felt like he had landed in a warp of a strange land. Ironically, he was. I'm not talking to you, he announced instantly, feeling stupid. Sasuke smirked while Hagrid chuckled, wiping his beard of globs of melted vanilla. I feel the same way, Ron murmured, ignoring the glare his friend was sending him. A tall, rather skinny man with a thick black mustache that curled at either side came walking up to their table. You think that hair in your ice cream fell from his beard? Naruto asked curiously. Ew, that's gross. Hermione squealed. He politely asked, would any of you 7 like seconds? Oh man, wouldn't I like another, several. Hands instantaneously slapped the demon vessel's mouth shut. Sakura laughed nervously, her hand struggling to keep his words from spitting out. No thank you, it's fine, her slender brow furrowed, I mean it. The waiter nodded, walking away to another table. Sasuke, Hermione, and Sakura released their grasps off of Naruto's mouth when he made a pleasure for himself of lolling out his saliva-dripping tongue. He began giggling like Satan with a hula hoop, just seeing their disgusted expressions and be stopped by putting on an impatient face. Why did you guys do that for? I wanted seconds. Of course I was hungry. And so blah 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 blah. Naruto droned on and on about his rights as a customer, and also Hagrid was paying. Sakura whispered to the rest of the diners at her table, Noan. Perfectly well, her best friend was more focused on making his point to listen, about the problem of whenever someone offers him a free meal that they no sooner would have empty pockets. Sasuke couldn't agree more. Blah blah blah. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everyone nodded like machines and just waited for the check to come. It was very nice to meet you three, Hermione smiled. Hope I can be the one to show you around Hogwarts. The 7 of them were standing in front of the Leaky Cauldron Tavern, where Hagrid would escort the shinobis to their rooms. That'll be good, Sakura replied, smiling. And very necessary, Sasuke thought to himself, nodding in acknowledgement of a farewell. Yeah, great meeting you three also. Hey, wait a minute. You two guys didn't really talk much. Bored as I am. Yeah, Diagon Alley isn't so great. Naruto grinned, waving his hand far into the air. Harry and Ron smiled nervously. Yes, well, anyway, have a nice day, Hagrid. Ron's brothers are going to take us to Burrow, soon. The bushy-haired girl said, taking the 2 boys' wrists into her small hands. See you guys at the Express. And they parted. To be continued, and thank you for watching.